Welcome to Behind the Campaign, the podcast where marketers pull back the curtain on some of their favorite marketing campaigns. I'm joined today by Darryl Sharp Jr., who's a freelance senior motion designer and art director. Hello, Darryl.
Hello, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
We are talking about such a fun campaign. One of my favorite things about being a host of this podcast is I have talked about so many topics that I just would not have not known about otherwise or learned about. So, for listeners who do not know who Childish Gambino is, tell us a little bit about him and a little bit about this campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Childish Gambino is actually the stage name of actor, writer, and comedian Donald Glover. If you are familiar with the show Atlanta, he created that. He is the head writer behind that with his team that goes by the name Royalty. And this rap career is something that he's had for a long time, for over a decade now. He's had like a slew of albums, so many great Grammy nominations, Grammy wins, and this is his curtain call with the name Childish Gambino for this album.
Yeah, he is so multi-talented. I don't know a single person who doesn't just love him, like, every time they see him, whether it be on TV or his music or, whatever. He's just got such range, so I love that we're
Absolutely.
talking about it.
Absolutely.
So, for this particular campaign, you worked with the motion graphic assets, right? So things like the animated album cover for music platforms. How did you get involved with this campaign?
That's a great question. So the label that Childish Gambino is on is RCA Records, and for the past 3 years now, I've been within their creative team. So within that, there's a lot of different assets they create for every artist. So kind of just catering to whatever they need when it comes to promotion, whether it's lyric videos, album art, visualizers, even just clips of music videos to kind of just get the marketing down when it comes to the music that they're creating and the world that they're building with every album that they drop.
Nice. So this kind of campaign, and I'm calling it a campaign because it's not just a music album release, right? There's this interesting juxtaposition between the music and this video that he created, this kind of long form video. So why was it really important to kind of have those two mediums come together? Because most people who create music do music videos, but this was a lot more than that. It was two things that were kind of uniquely positioned together.
Yeah, what I've always really admired about Donald Glover and what's made me a big fan of him as a creative is that he always really embraces so many different mediums. I think he was one of the first multi-hyphenate creatives that I've seen that's been so successful. So with his experience with film and television, he was able to pivot so easily. And even with this project, it was almost like a return to form because there have been past projects. For example, an album that he dropped in I believe 2013 called "Because the Internet," where along with the album there was a screenplay associated with the album that centered around some of the themes. And he also did some short film content with that with a short film called "Clapping for the Wrong Reasons." So what I love is that as we've seen with his television show and his involvement with film is that this has just been a development in his creativity. So it's a great treat, and also no surprise to see him do something as ambitious as video and a full length movie with an album. It's all very exciting. It's always very inspiring.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen him talk many times and he has such this passion about the art, right? It's not just about I'm going to make an album or I'm going to make a video or, a TV show or whatever. He has such a unique perspective on that. One of the podcasts that where he was speaking, he was asked, why did he do this album? Because this is really a goodbye album for Childish Gambino, this persona that he's had for many years for his music. Was his kind of swan song, if you want to call it that. But he was asked, why would you do this? Why would you do this big production and this big album? And he said, not everyone gets to die in bed. And I thought that was, at first I was like, what is he talking about? And then as he kind of explained, he was really saying that, not every artist gets to say goodbye to their fans. And not everybody, really kind of gets that opportunity to have that kind of closing moment, that goodbye. So how did the motion graphics that either that you worked on or as part of the broader campaign, how do they really help tell that story of this being his goodbye?
think it was a great way to just kind of associate with the film that was going to come with this album as well. So finding ways to kind of add that mythological wonder and everything of when the world ends. So for me personally, something that I really enjoyed was when I worked on the animated album art, there is a rainbow on the side, kind of on the side of the album artwork to kind of maybe show, I don't know, maybe good fortune or just show the end, show some positivity, show some light. So even creating motion assets, it was a lot of fun to animate that, whether it was adding some kind of glow to the color and kind of add this kind of whimsiness that you see a lot even in the trailer when he was teasing this album slash movie of like what goes on, especially because for the film it's set in the apocalypse of like what do you do when the world ends. So kind of just having a chance to add to that narrative and add some glow, add some light to the motion graphics was a great opportunity to kind of show that there's always something to be hopeful for at the end of the day.
And as part of this campaign, there were also a lot of in person kind of experiential components, specifically in LA, maybe in some other cities. What was the reason kind of behind putting together or incorporating that experience level into this campaign?
I think that's always just been something, in my opinion, as a Donald Glover, Childish Gambino fan, is I think he really enjoys the idea of interaction when it comes to meeting in real life, especially with the internet. We feel like there is community, but just having that community in real life, seeing people shaking hands, it's always great. I've even seen that in his past for past albums. He had his own festival that he created called Pharos, where he would introduce new music, and it was kind of like Burning Man inspired, where he would have these events where people would dress in certain clothing, there'd be certain kind of music, and it was kind of just a great festival to get along and meet people. And I think creating this convenience store that came with the album that was inspired by the trailer and the apocalypse and everything. It was just a great opportunity to kind of bring that experiential mind forward because it's a great continuation of just the creative mind that him and his team already have.
Yeah, that's great. And so, like, what was your favorite part of working on this? Either something you worked on specifically or just, kind of the broader campaign itself?
I think for me, what I love personally is I love the Apple Music cover because I created that motion graphics. It makes me proud that as a Childish Gambino fan, every time I open Apple Music and I just see that motion cover, it's like, hey, I worked on that. It's like a very small piece in this campaign, but it really means a lot. It's something I'm very proud of as a fan for over a decade.
So, tell me a little bit from a motion graphic designer's perspective. How does something like that come to fruition? This album cover art that's animated. Is that something where, like, if somebody kind of has this idea and they come to your team and you kind of like, what do you take into consideration when you're designing something like that?
That's a great question. So I've been doing it kind of for fun since about 2018. So doing it professionally over the past few years, I'm always kind of just in the mind of like, what can move in this photo? I think even my inspiration for how I wanted to like do this kind of medium for music that I enjoy was that I always saw album covers as kind of a pause, like you kind of like pause a movie and you kind of see like what's going on, all the details, and what's going to happen when you press play again. So even when it comes to this process, I feel like a lot of it is actually on our team to create the motion graphics. A lot of times we may already have inspiration on what's going on and then we just share it with the artist team and their manager. And it's a great way to just communicate like, hey, this is how I visualize or see the work that you're creating. And here's my opportunity to bring a visual interpretation of it.
So for this particular artwork that you did, I'm assuming you watched the film and listened to the album and all of that. Were there certain parts of those two elements that you really kind of pulled into the piece that you were creating? I know you mentioned there, it's set in the apocalypse and there's rainbows, which isn't very apocalyptic. And, you've got this convenience store. And for people who haven't seen either the trailer or the full length film, they may be a little bit confused. And it sounds like there's so much that you could have considered. How do you, as a motion graphic designer, like really get to the heart? Like like I just said, there's so many things that you could put in there. And when you're dealing with artwork cover, it's just like a small snippet. How do you decide what's important?
I feel like a lot of times, especially now because I'm seeing so many people use AI and it kind of looks a little wonky when it comes to what people do and all the details. I think for me, like less is always more. I feel like a lot of ways you're not really trying to compete with the album artwork. You want to kind of accent to it, whether it's maybe certain details, maybe it's like adding like a subtle glow, maybe it's like something subtly pulsating. Like even with the rainbow that I animated on the side, I kind of wanted it to just like accent what was going on in the scene, like not take away from Donald Glover as the subject on the cover, just finding a way to just say that there's something going on, like almost like you would interpret like a screensaver for a computer. It's just something that you notice there's a little bit of movement. It's maybe not something that's very disruptive, but it's something that's very subtle and something that kind of like catches your attention at the side of your eye.
Very nice. So you opened the door. You mentioned AI. So I'm going to have to ask you about AI because
Yes,
as a marketer,
please.
every conversation I have has some component of AI. Do you use AI at all? Maybe not for your work, but in personal. And how do you feel about it from the industry that you're in of motion graphics?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I always just see it as a tool. Like I feel like it's a great way to kind of just like show results really fast. Like I don't really use it a lot, especially when it comes to final work, but it's a great way to kind of just see what's possible out there, especially when it comes to sharing and pitching ideas. For example, maybe it's like a quick mock-up of something or a great way to say like, what if these two different elements were combined together? It's a great way to kind of just like share ideas very fast before actually trying to execute it on my own.
How did you get started in motion graphics?
So I actually started as a graphic designer, and I think as a way to kind of stand out when it comes to applications because everything is so competitive, just learning an extra skill when it comes to motion graphics and animation. It was a great way to just kind of stand out in the job circuit and the application pool.
You were also part of the Rising Leaders program through Creative Ladder. Tell us a little bit about that experience because I love Creative Ladder, as listeners of the show will know, because I've talked about
Yes,
it several
so
times.
much love for Creative Ladder, so much love.
Yeah, how
I
did you
think
find the program?
I think like a lot of people, I believe, I think I found it through LinkedIn. A bunch of mutual friends that I have completed the Rising Leaders Academy. So I was like, oh, what's that? And I think I feel like I'm in this point in my life and my career where I'm just trying to find ways where I can grow as a leader. And I think through the traditional kind of like ladder of being inside an agency or kind of just like evolving from maybe a junior role to a senior role to a creative director role, you're kind of just figuring out how do you get to that next level. So I think just learning through about Creative Lab, especially when they really strive to get diverse people that are so diverse in these with these opportunities, it would just felt like it was calling my name, especially because when I first started in advertising or just this field when it came to marketing, I was really introduced to the four A's and MAPE. So because of opportunities like that and just finding ways because of diversity bringing more opportunities, and it's always something that really excited me. And even just the fact that they announced I guess, a creative boot camp in Los Angeles, I believe in 2023, that really introduced me to what Creative Ladder was and just like how amazing this organization is and just being involved further in my career with being a member of the Rising Leaders Academy as well, even have the opportunity to go to Cannes last summer. It's just been really a blessing to know that this kind of organization exists and tries to help people strive.
Like I said, big fan. Going back to the Childish Gambino campaign, for someone who has not seen it, what would you tell them in order to get them to go watch it, listen to the music or watch the videos?
I think it's just admiring Donald Glover's interpretation of the world, especially when I feel like a lot of his humor, a lot of his perspective is very dark comedy, especially starting as a comedian. So it's a really great interpretation of just like people and society. And even now when he's kind of like doing his own thing or doing his own creative programs, it's really insightful to just see how he views the world. I think that's really great.
Yeah. I was shocked, when I was watching one of the podcasts. I didn't realize that he had 3 kids. Like,
Hmm.
he's a grown adult.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Dulcich
He always
Gambino.
just seems like a youngster to me. Maybe it's because 'cause I'm so much
Yeah.
older than him, but he's, like, married with 3 kids.
Yeah.
And if I understand correctly, he had his family be involved in this project a little bit as well.
Oh,
That
yeah,
under
I'm glad you mentioned that because, his son Legend is one of the main characters in the film, so you can see him interact with his son throughout it, so it's a lot of fun.
That is great. That is so much fun. Well, it's been great talking with you today. I really appreciate you coming on. For those of, for people who are listening who are looking for a motion graphic artist, what's your dream job?
Yes, my dream job is just having a full-time kind of creative director opportunity within a record label. I've had a chance to work at 3 different labels at this time. I worked with Universal Music Group, I've done stuff with Sony Music, I've done stuff with Warner Records. So just being in that field because I love music, I love finding ways to bring a creative identity to music and audio, especially going along with artist vision. So look for me in the future when it comes to motion graphics and art direction, specifically for music.
Awesome. So if there are any music executives listening in, get in touch.
Yes,
I
please,
will connect
please.
you with Daryl. So thank you
Yes.
so much. I appreciate you coming on and talking about this really cool campaign. I will put links to all of the things that we talked about in the description for the podcast so people can go watch for themselves and listen to the album because, yeah, you won't be hearing Childish Gambino
Mhm.
anymore.
Yep.
No,
That's it. Yeah,
that's it.
on to new things.
Yep. And we can't wait to see what those things are.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Daryl.
Yes, great for having me. Thank you for having me.
Bye.